Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I come to you from nerdrotic.com, and I'm live in San Francisco, and I'm with my co-host in Bloomington, Minnesota. Did I get that right?
Yeah, right. It's Minneapolis.
Minneapolis,
Yeah, in Minnesota. It's not as
Minneapolis,
cold as I
Minnesota.
brought the sun with me. Yeah. How's it going?
Dude, you are a traveling man. It's good. It's
Yes.
good. How is it going with you?
It's good. I'm excited. It's a little later than usual. Usually on the West Coast, I'll be able to watch this at 9 and podcast at 10:20 or so. Here, it's watching it at 11 and podcasting at 12:30 a.m. So it's a little different out here. But I look, Runaways is my new favorite thing. So I'll talk about this anytime you want, Gary. Anytime you call me up, I'll be here talking about the Runaways.
Well, this is a comic we both liked from the beginning. We said it in our last podcast. I don't know if many people saw that last podcast, so you might be
Yeah.
catching us for the first time. We will be recapping every show. We do it within a few minutes of the West Coast feed. And we get it. Yeah, hopefully you're still on West Coast time. We get it here at 9 o'clock. They drop it at midnight Eastern time, I guess. So I don't know how many people are
Yes. So
even
it's
still up.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's stupid. I don't love that. I don't love them dropping it at like midnight like it drops on Tuesday. Like it makes more sense to like pick a time on Tuesday and have it be like a Tuesday show, right? Like this isn't a Tuesday show for the West Coast. It's a Monday at 9 show, just like The Gifted is. So I feel like Hulu made a bit of an error in kind of scheduling that way. Like nobody's gonna like it's rare that like on a Monday night you're gonna stay up till midnight on the East Coast to watch it, and then end at 1 a.m. and go to sleep. Like, no, you're just gonna watch it at a random time the next day. So I don't know. I just feel like it's a weird. It kind of takes it out of that kind of appointment TV that has water cooler talk the next day because like, oh, we'll have seen it tomorrow, but most people will watch it, probably tomorrow or the next day. So I don't know. I think it was maybe not the greatest idea, but hey, we get it a day earlier, I guess.
Yeah, but it competes against Gifted for one when it's not repeating. And another thing is the water cooler aspect of it. I think the streaming services just wanted to be different from TV and do the anti-appointment thing, but I think they're not thinking about the water cooler talk and everybody seeing it at the same time. Now it's going to, and that's what gets people to watch your show. It's the word of mouth. It's
Yeah.
not promoting. That's it. It's people
Walking
talking about it.
Dead, Game of Thrones, Westworld, Legion. Those are shows that like people. What's the other one you cover with that? Mr. Robot. Like
Mr.
these are
Robot.
shows that like when something big happens, you go like people at work the next day are like talking about like the crazy thing that just happened or speculating what's going to happen next. And I feel like the way to do that is to get everyone watching at the same time so they feel comfortable talking about it the next day, right? Like you feel pretty comfortable that the Mr. Robot fans will have watched Mr. Robot the night before. You and I will wake up tomorrow and not know if people have seen Runaways today because it came out so late or not, right? So
Yeah.
I think that that's just the problem. But that said, the show itself is fantastic. Like it's so good. It's better than I expected, and I expected it to be good because it's one of my favorite showrunners. This is like a classic TV show to me at this point.
Yeah, it's good. It's a surprise to me. I know it's one of your favorite showrunners, and I respect that, but it was something I was kind of expecting to like, I'll enjoy this like with my wife or something. There's shows that I enjoy with my wife and I kind of enjoy, and then there's shows like I'm deeply into, like Mr. Robot. This one is going to be one I'm pretty much deeply into. And I didn't think I would be at all because it's shaping up to be, I don't know, it's just not normally what I like. It's not in my wheelhouse, but that's what's good about expanding your horizons. And yeah, it's dark. It's dark enough for me, and it is a really dark subject. Finding out your parents are supervillains, or I don't know if they're supervillains in this show, but a part of an evil cabal. Yeah, it's a dark subject, and having to
And they
turn
added
them
in
in.
the like suicide death of one of the main character's sisters. Like
Yeah,
they've added extra dark stuff to make it even darker, which was not what I expected them to. I expected them to pull punches, not like add extra dark shit in, right? So like I feel like they've gone darker than the comic really demanded for this first season, and it's on purpose, and I think it's smart. I think that almost all the decisions that they've made in changing things, or even not just adapting things a certain way, have been like spot on. And like we've called them out for the few. I still think the Molly change in general isn't great. Like I don't love the girl playing her. She's a little bit annoying. The fact that she's older, but still acting like a kid on the show. Like she's gonna be Dawn, right, from Buffy. Like she's gonna be the one that everyone has to rescue all the time, even though she's the strongest one. Like it's just there's things that don't make sense about the Molly change. But other than that, like I feel like most of the changes they made have been like pretty great in service of a really good TV show. And like yeah, and making it darker and weirder. Like they've made it weirder. uh let's talk right off the bat. We've got like weird alien gas mask dude sex. Like that's weird. Like weird, right? They added that in there for a reason, supposedly, theoretically, but it's weird.
That was weird, man. I did not see that coming. See what
No.
I did there?
Yeah, that's good.
Uh,
That's good.
yeah, that like there's two we don't want to bury the lead scenes. We'll start with that one. And yeah, weird alien that looks like God, what's the guy's the oh man, I'm blanking on his name now. The bad guy from Generation X. Emplate. He
Implate,
looks
yeah.
kind of he's got the emplate kind of thing on his face. And he asks Leslie, who is Karolina's mom, to warm him. So she gets naked, gets into bed with him, and his crotch starts glowing. Not just the
Yeah.
I thought like he'd just glow, but no, it was specifically his crotch. I was like, we both messaged each other. You messaged right before me. You're like, what?
Yeah, I was like, what is this? This is so weird. And like,
That
and
was
it's also
weird.
one of those things that like I didn't like at first thought, I'm like, this is just weird. But as it went, like as it kind of sunk in what's like going on in all of this, like I like that all the characters have like something really strange. I just love all this strangeness that they're adding into the show. Like they're clearly slow playing the plot, and to do that, you need to add stuff in for character development or plot development. They have to add some like B and C plot lines that aren't in the comics. For like this weird Scientology alien sex cabal thing going. Like I like that that's like what they chose to expand on. Like it's weird, like it's super strange, and it takes it outside of the like teen angsty drama, and it makes it much more like Twin Peaks or something weird. And I like that. I like that thinking.
That's exactly why I'm into this. And there's still plenty of teen angst to come if you're a fan of that. And there's plenty in the book, but it's not uh, just trivial. They there's real stakes here. Once they actually embark on the running away, which I'm not sure they're going to do yet, but we're still
Is
at
that the
that setup
finale of the
point.
season? Like they
It
finally run
may,
away in the finale?
God, yeah, it seems like it, but it looks like I think they'll get to that a little sooner. The
Yeah.
other thing was like right off the bat, Amy, Nico's sister, is it looks like she committed suicide. Um, and I mean, I got right away that that's not what went
Yeah, the
down
mom
because
was acting super weird.
yeah,
Like
so that's I think did we even talk about? I think we talked about it last podcast that she was possibly
yeah.
sacrificed.
Yes.
Um,
And I poo-pooed that. I said no, I don't think it was a sacrifice. I think it had something to do with Molly's parents' death, and maybe she was dabbling in the magics, and her mom had burns after Molly's parents were dead at the funeral, and I thought maybe Amy was tied up in that somehow. But you had brought up before that, like, hey, I think maybe she was a sacrifice, and I was like, well, I don't know, why would they sacrifice Amy? Like, theoretically, they're doing some of this shit for their kids, so
yeah,
you know,
I still think that's kind of possibly what happened. And the whole
yeah,
changing things with Molly's parents, uh, which I didn't bring up last podcast. So yeah, they lock down their house when Nico discovers Amy, and she's freaking out, and they don't call 911. And she sees after the house gets locked down, she sees some guy come over, and you can hear a little bit of the conversation behind the door, and they're talking about like just what basically what happened. And I was a little confused about where that was time wise. I'm maybe because I wasn't paying attention well enough, and wasn't sure. Okay, are we still in the flashback area or what's
Yeah,
going on? But it was still in the flashback, and Nico sees just this guy's face, um, which plays into it later. But yeah, that's a huge change, and I still think they might be connected. I don't know. I
yeah, we'll see. I mean,
because well, yeah, without spoiling too much, yeah, the whole motivation by the parents is, I mean, they even say it in this episode. They're doing this for their kids. Like they are doing this for their kids. Um, I think they might change that what they're doing for their kids, but they are doing it.
seems like it's got to change. Like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing that I think is so great about this show. And a few shows have done this well. And I think this is going to be grouped in with those at the end of this. It isn't sacrificing a general audience or its fans. It's giving the fans new stuff that we haven't read before that's interesting to speculate about. It's also giving us very familiar stuff that we like to see reinforced in an adaptation of something we love. And at the same time, it's a show that I think anyone can get into. It doesn't have to be like a Captain America fan going to a Captain America movie because they're a Captain America fan, right? Like, I feel like they're doing a good job of appealing to everybody without sacrificing or pissing anybody off, really. It's, like, we talked last time about this. It could have gotten very political, right? Like, but like even today, the petitioners are like ragging on Karolina for being a slut, and Gert's like, "Fuck you guys, I'm out of here." Like, or like, "Hey, who's driving a silver Prius?" Everyone raises their hand. Like these little jokes that are in there aren't, it's not. They're not playing to anybody, I guess. They're like making fun observations about everything. So I feel like they're doing a good job of just like having broad appeal but very specific interest. And I think that that's what's great about what they've been able to do so far. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know, really well done.
When they mentioned the license plate frame to that, I'm like, oh damn, I gotta change mine because I have that exact one. My
My
other
other car
car
is
is
a
a
TARDIS.
TARDIS. Yeah. It's
It's
dorky.
so good. It's so
I know.
good. Like, yeah, I
Oh,
just I just love those little touches that they're able to capture this moment in time without being, overly something.
no,
So
and generally the writing is really good and the acting's good, but I do have to point out the worst dialogue I've heard in a
sure.
long time. And I'm gonna call you this. John, you are a lacrosse ruining slut.
Lacrosse.
You
It's hard to
ruined
say,
so much
actually.
lacrosse with your sex.
Yes.
I know it doesn't
Oh
really roll
gosh.
off the tongue, does it?
No, it doesn't. And
That
I actually want to. You're right. It's a terrible line. And I think what's interesting about that is this again reminded me a lot of Joss Whedon's like Buffy work, where there would be a really bad line followed up by a really great scene. And like that was this, right? Like that line happened right before the weird alien sex. So it's like you get this weird teen drama and really bad dialogue that you're kind of like, ooh, but then you don't get time to dwell on it because they throw something crazy at you. And like I think that's going to be a strength of this show is like we are going to get cringy moments. I think those are inherently going to be part of this, but as long as they followed up with something interesting, it's like, well, that was, that was there, I guess. And it doesn't bug me as much.
almost every show. I mean, ones it has a cringe moment. There was a couple in Buffy. I don't remember a lot in Buffy, but that was back then. I haven't
Especially,
watched it in a couple of years.
yeah.
But that's the thing about trying to do Joss Whedon work. Now, with Brian K. Vaughan and this, where Joss Whedon actually wrote this comic book for Brian K. Vaughan for a
Yep.
little while. And it really fits. I mean, this is marketed for a Buffy / X-Men fan. And I talked about this in the Punisher review I did. Please check it out with Dennis on Friday on our live podcast. And I want to bring it up here again with you a little bit about comic book profiling. It's not as bad as it sounds. Okay. You hear the word comic book fan, and we're not just giant united unit that all likes the same thing. It's quite different than that. There's actually so many sects, not with an X, but sects of yeah, I know, of fans within it that the normie wouldn't even understand. Like, best analogy is the NFL. It's like somebody just doesn't watch the NFL and just loves every game. You know what I mean? They're rooting for a team, and it's the same thing with comics. This show, while it has mass appeal, but it's not going to appeal to the comic fan who just gets Batman, the Punisher,
Yeah, Dark
reads the
Knight, Punisher.
boys,
Yeah,
Transmetropolitan. I mean, that's kind of the group I fall a little bit into that group, but I also like my superhero books, and that's what it is like the superhero books are the books that kind of bring everybody together. And then, when the guy gets tired of reading or girl gets tired of reading the superhero books, they go into other books but they still stay with the superhero books. This one is slightly a superhero books, but this is like a YA indie title that is made for X-Men fans. I mean, purely for X-Men fans. And there's plenty of them. So there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why it appealed to like every X-Men, like every person who subscribed to the Runaways at my store also got X books. There was no exceptions.
interesting.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
no
that makes
exceptions.
sense.
And like X-Men fans will also get almost to a man and woman
Teen
Teen
Titans,
Yeah. So yeah. And
Young
go one
Avengers,
further, they'll get Young Avengers, and a lot of them will get Robin. It's weird. It's like
Robin. Yeah,
you can profile somebody and like pick books for them, and then it makes it easier to recommend. It's like, oh well, then you like the Runaways if you like the
you just listed the comics that I buy, right? So yes, you're right.
See?
It's pretty spot on.
Still got it, man.
Yeah, you still
No.
got it. Yeah, no, I agree. I guess interestingly though, the show is different from the comic to me. It's darker. I think this show is
Oh, it's
darker
way
than
dark.
the comic, right? So like I could almost say like, hey, you'll like it because it is Runaways and it's still inherently Runaways. But like if you thought Runaways was too campy or too light and fluffy, you still might like this show. Like you may not like love it. It's not Punisher, it's not Dark Knight, but it will have something I think that will um, that'll work for you to some degree. Like the creepy cabal stuff, the like murder room, the murder library, or whatever they were calling it at the beginning. Like the ending of this episode, where Nico gets taken. Not Nico. Alex gets taken away. Like it basically gets kidnapped after Karolina is told that her mom is choosing what targets to end up to kill every year. Like these are moments that like I again didn't expect, and I think that like they're there for somebody who's looking for a little more substance in their TV. Like you can almost pull what you like out of this show and ignore the rest if you want, if you're willing to ignore the rest, I guess. Which usually I am. Like I'm willing to ignore the couple crappy dialogue moments for the sake of that character development. And some people aren't. Some people just see the bad, those bad moments and say like, this is cheesy, I can't do it, and I get that too. But I think there is something you can hone in on if you like certain aspects and kind of kick the
If
other
you
stuff to the
watch
side.
the CW shows, you should be watching this show. Like it's
Yeah, I mean, whew.
it's while not as comic booky, hate that term, or superhero driven, it's in that vein. I think it's a step better in my opinion. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I just think the quality is a little higher, or the filmmaking and the acting and the writing. It's a little cookie cutter over there at CW, but that's still a fun place. Not dissing CW.
Yeah.
I know they had
I
their big
like
Earth
most of the
X event tonight.
CW. I like most of the CW shows. What I would say about this that really strikes me as like quote unquote better is that when I'm watching those shows, one of the main reasons I'm watching them is to be like, oh, which new comic book character is going to show up as a villain tonight, or which guy is going to join the Legends of Tomorrow? Like, what roster change are we going to see? Let's see this new adaptation of this DC character. It's always kind of like from what are they going to pull from the comics now that's going to be exciting? It's
Yeah,
not really
that's a
about
great
the
point.
actual execution. Whereas this, you're not getting that. Like, they're not going to add Iron Man or Iron Lad into this show at some point, right? Like this show is what it is. These characters are the characters we're going to follow probably through the first couple seasons without much addition to it. We're not looking for Easter eggs from Marvel Comics. We're looking for this story to be told well, and they're doing a good job of that. So that's kind of why I think it's similar in that these are soap operas with superpowers, right? Both of them, like Flash, the whole CW verse, or this. But like that's more of like a what Easter egg are they going to throw at me? Oh, this is exciting, and this is much more like a this I'm invested in this story and I want to see where it goes next. Like I know they're not going to add another character in tomorrow that I'm excited about seeing. Like whatever. Anyway, so I think that that's a subtle difference here.
This isn't an adaptation of an enclosed story. I know they've restarted the Runaways umpteen times, but I really only consider it the first two volumes. Like the first two volumes to me are the Runaways.
I would actually say I agree with you. That's what I remember when I think of the Runaways. But after rereading it, I'd say that you could extend it to the first like four. I think that when you have the X anyway, I don't want to ruin anything, but they add like a separate group antithesis to the Runaways after the
Yeah.
main story arc ends. And I think that arc is also really compelling and I can
Well,
like see, but after that, yes, it's all kind of
everything
just
Vaughn wrote is fine. This is his
yeah,
baby. So
correct.
and nobody can write. I know there's somebody else writing it. Like only Vaughn can write this, in my opinion. And
Yes.
Joss Whedon did an okay job,
Yeah, it
but
wasn't his wasn't even that good.
yeah, it wasn't
I
his
think Vaughn,
best.
this is Vaughn's thing, and he knows what he's
Totally,
doing. Which is
definitely.
good that he's on it. I love that he's a consultant on this.
Oh hell
Hopefully
yeah!
he's actually,
I wonder. I hope he's got some creator right with this. I think he does. But
he's got to.
well, yeah. Well, this was pre Disney, so there was some creator right involved with this. I don't know about post Disney what's going on, but this book came out. God, I can't believe it came out. That it's like right when I
It
opened the
was
store, so it was my first year.
2003,
Yeah,
2002.
2003.
Yes.
So yeah, man, I can't believe it's that old. It still feels like a new book to me. I'm like
So
looking over, I'm
me too.
staring at the cover. That's what I'm looking at. Okay.
Well,
It's
so
a
this
great cover.
this episode specifically, I felt like was interesting because the beats of the episode felt more like oh, this is an episode of TV. Like this is a generic episode of TV. You know, like it
Yeah.
was like oh, they paired off and they each had a little mission and but and so when I saw the preview, I was like, oh, I'm not really invested in any of those those filler storylines. But the way that they did it, it didn't really come off that way in practice, right? Like they threw a lot of weird stuff at us. They kind of mix and matched. Like they Gert and Karolina went and found um the list of runaways that the church had taken in and sacrificed, and then Gert left, and Carolina and Chase had their moment, and then Gert brought the thing to Alex to decrypt, and then he did that when he decided to hang out with Nico. So like they do a good job of like instead of just saying like here are the three plots they're going on at the same time, they they do a good job of like melding them seamlessly so that it's just one day in the life of these people and they're all intertwined with all the other plots. So when you've got like the Yorks who are actually planning to run away from the
Yeah.
Pride, and you've got this problem where Chase's dad is going insane and he thinks he like has this girl ready to sacrifice, but then he gets there and he doesn't. So that was weird. Like I'd love to hear what you think about that. But when you have all that
Yeah.
stuff going on, they all cross over to each other's stories at a certain point. Like Tina shows up in the York storyline. And anyway, so what do you think happened with that girl we saw in the van at the beginning of the episode?
Yeah, that was weird. And they never went back to it. She just disappeared. And I was half expecting her to show up at the police department. She couldn't have escaped. Um,
No, because
I don't know.
all the stuff
I
was
have
folded and
no
the blood
idea.
was in the
Time travel?
yeah, there
Well, if
seem to
I
be
know.
little moments of probable time travel. I think we're going to get an episode at some point where we see somebody went into the past and is fucking with him. Like I feel like we're going to see like all these episodes, all these weird moments coalesce in like a Back to the Future style way down the road.
You and I
Maybe.
both, not at the same time, but attended Phil's aesthetic class at
Yes.
San Francisco State. And what did he teach us about aesthetic? That they don't waste anything. Everything is put in there for a reason. So I'm going to go way out on a limb now. The mention of the TARDIS wasn't just to be a cutesy little scene. It was a little nod to time travel. So
Yeah.
yes, I think that's what happened because there's no way that she was tied, she was hogtied practically, and he hit her with a tire iron. So Yeah, again, I was expecting her to get to the police station, and then the cops would be on their side, and she would disappear anyway. But she just like straight up disappeared. So
Yeah,
that
literally
was
just.
weird. Now I
Yeah, that
think it
was
was a
weird.
little weird to not nod to that a little bit. Um,
Well, I think we're
but
supposed to think he's just going crazy, right? Like that's what we're supposed to think as an audience. Is just like this guy's crazy and he thinks he had this girl, but really he didn't because he's losing it. But like every time he appears to be losing it, it's like at a really weird moment, you know, that like I don't know. He wasn't losing it when they were beating up a bum in the alley.
well, he got his ass handed to him too. You
Yeah,
got to
he
watch
did.
out.
He did not.
You really
He's
got
not
to.
the Spike of old. He's
No, he's not the Spike of old, and also, yeah, you just do not, yeah, do that. Those people live in the street.
don't
They know how to freaking
attack
throw. Okay,
homeless people.
they know how to throw. It's the best, especially a couple suburban and suburban upper middle class dads who are both useless, man. Yeah,
Yes, they are. They're the
not the
most useless.
biggest fan of Stein and Robert. But I'm glad they've expanded on the parent thing, because that's actually what keeps me in. If this was just like teens going "Ugh," all the time, I'd probably be out. But it's not, and that's not what the book's like either. But actually, the comic's funnier. It's got a lot of little funny, cute moments. And you talked about it last podcast with Nico. Nico is way more fun in the comics than she is here. Now, I understand why she's not fun in this show, because her sister committed suicide.
Yeah, she's dealing with the death of her sister.
Well, she knows, like, her sister got murdered. Like, she straight up knows. And they put it together. And it's just a matter of turning in your parents to the cops, which that would suck. But and that this is where, like, it's starting to not be like the comic at all.
I
I mean,
started to think that.
it's unfolding like the comic did. I mean, like, if people are complaining, like, I would find myself complaining, like, God, there's not enough powers and what's going on. This is how the comic unfolds. Like, what it does is each comic has a person discovering their powers or whatever they can do, like, for the first few issues. So I think it's actually paced like the comic. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
And the story is interesting enough. While I say that if they hadn't dropped 3, they would be. I don't think people would be that into it. I'm not sure how many people are into the show, and they should be. It's good, but
yeah.
I
Let's
haven't
talk
seen a
about that
lot
a
of
little
chit
bit.
chat
The
about that. Yeah.
marketing push. It's almost like they only wanted Runaways fans to watch this show. Like I feel
Right.
like no one I know knows about this show. Actually, even Runaways fans are like, "Oh, is that started yet?" And like, it's weird, right? Like I haven't seen like I know that the trailers exist and I saw them online pop up in a couple of people's Facebook feeds and stuff. But I just feel like Hulu, who's on this like amazing run right now, like they won a bunch of awards for Handmaid's Tale. They've got the Seth Rogen Future Man show. They've got all these different shows that are doing better than they've done in the past. And they've got Runaways, which is like I I think that this is up there in how comic book series should be treated by TV. Like you may not like the source material, but if you do, you're gonna pretty much probably like this adaptation. So like I feel like this is something that should be like when they dropped Daredevil and Defenders on Netflix. Like everyone's talking about that, and like nobody that I've heard is talking about this, and it's so good. It's really weird. I don't know why the marketing dollars were behind it. Maybe Hulu's just not at the point where it can do that yet or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't want to dive into it too much. We can save that for the Friday night podcast, talk about
Yeah.
streaming networks. But I could definitely bring up the fact that I think Hulu's kind of just third. There might be people who would debate that with me, but I think Amazon second. I think Netflix is first, and I think they're just a solid, mundane third. And I think people go to them. I only know by my habits and some of my friends, and they don't go. You don't just hear Hulu mention that much. My wife watched The Handmaid's Tale, but I mean, I know nobody else who watched it other than you. Um,
I didn't watch
so,
it. It's too
and I
weird
did,
for me.
yeah. The groups I'm on YouTube all the damn time. Okay, all the damn time, and I watch. There's a couple of comic guys who I follow who do live streams almost every night, and it's just basically like a comic book hangout, and people just talk. It gets
Mhm.
very salty, very, very salty. So, but nobody talked about it at all. They're still talking about the Punisher, and Twitter drama, which we don't get into. So,
Yeah, it's weird. I feel
yeah,
like that's been a failing
nobody
of this.
brought it up. I even brought it up in one of them, and like I didn't even get a response. I mean, like it's like, really? Okay.
Do you think that this would have been better off being on not like with like pretend like there's no studio interference and it's just Josh Schwartz doing Runaways and then them putting it out on a different network? Do you think that this would have been more successful and more watched if it were on Freeform or ABC
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, I think
or
just
Netflix?
people aren't putting the connect. Yeah, Netflix. 'Cause I think like there's a Marvel show on Hulu too. Okay, so there's Marvel shows on Freeform. There's Marvel show. It's too spread out. Marvel, ABC, television, whatever you are, it's way too spread out. It doesn't need to be that spread out. You own networks for Christ's sake. So why are you putting it on one you don't own? Does Disney own part of Hulu? I mean, they could. I have
Probably,
no idea.
probably.
Probably a piece of it.
I
Um,
also don't understand why like the CW is the only network that exists in the older teen bracket, like the young adults, not kid bracket, right? Like Freeform is for younger than CW. And I don't understand why they're like this show exists, I would say, in a just above CW slot. Like just older than the CW audience is probably where this show lives, like them plus a little bit older, not them minus a little bit, which is where Freeform is. So it's almost as if this show does exist like outside of like gritty Netflix and outside of like CW is the most natural, but it's CW, it's Warner, so they're not going to have a Marvel show on the CW. So it's almost like there's no place for this show to land. So I guess it makes sense that it would pop up on Hulu, but at the same time, like when you've got like a successful show creator doing a successful adaptation of a successful comic book, you would expect to hear a little bit more about it, I feel. Because I think that
Definitely.
this is just great. I'm loving every single minute I'm watching this thing,
No, it's
aside from a couple of cross jokes.
it's doing what Marvel, for the most part, not with everything, does, which is keeping the spirit of the source material. And it's really tight with the source material as far as tone.
Oh,
Not
I also want to say for all you OC fans out there, they reuse a house. The house with the two stairways with the pool out front was also in the OC. I think it was Summer's house from the OC. So they were
probably
using
Josh
one of the
Schwartz's
OC
house
houses. Yeah, maybe I don't know. It's pretty cool to see
or
that
one of
house
his
get cleaned
friends.
up.
So
But so what?
go on.
Go for it. Well, I was going to
No,
ask
I
you
was gonna.
what you think of this episode in comparison to the 3 hour premiere. Like, do you think that this is more the status quo, or do you think that the tone of the first, like this episode felt a little bit more like normal TV, and the first few felt a lot more like contained story, like move like a mini series, right? Like that kind of quality. Do you feel that about this? Like it's like the first three and then this one, and if so, do you think it's going to be more like this going forward? Or do you feel like it's been just naturally,
I
the
think it's
same?
going to be more like this. I still trying to get a feel of the show. I mean, I don't really know because the first three episodes together felt pretty cinematic. The second one being a little slower, but not bad. This one though, yeah, it felt like regular TV. It moved really well. It had a lot of moving parts. We're really spread out right now, so I think it'll change once everybody kind of gets together. Well, our team gets together anyway. I think
Yeah,
the parents are,
getting in the way.
but it feels like there's some stakes. I'm wondering if like some parents might die.
Possibility. We already had
It's
two die off
definitely a
screen.
possibility. Yeah, yeah, off screen before it even happened. So I yeah, I think to create
Yeah.
some stakes, somebody's going to have to croak. Maybe it's Chase's dad. I have no idea. They could.
Or
I don't
mom.
think. I
She's
think they're
kind of
going to.
a
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. There's something definitely going on with him, and I'm gonna find out what's going on with Victor Stein because that's actually a character I'm interested. He's a total asshole, but I'm interested in just all the tech he's got. It was a cool little scene sitting down. Kind of, you could tell that was like their last good moment together. By the way, of kind of bonding over the gloves,
the gauntlet.
the fistigons.
Fistagons.
So yeah, I just got a bad feeling. I mean, he's like losing it. He looks sick. Yeah, I don't know if he's long for this world, and he is effing up. Now again, this is a softer pride than what's in the comics.
Yeah.
Also, the biggest change is to Alex's dad, who continues to protest stuff. Like when they wanted to go pick out a homeless guy or run away, and like he just happens to bring up what they don't count. It's like, really, dude, you need to sacrifice somebody, and you're
I
worried.
think he's
Should
like,
we get
we
somebody who
know
counts?
his backstory though, and like he's starting to feel like I could have been one of those sacrifices. You know what I mean? Like you understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's like, haven't you been doing this for 15 years? Like, wouldn't that
Yeah,
be something you would have said 14 years ago and then like stopped? Not
yeah.
like the other way
There's a reason
around.
this episode was called 15.
Right.
You've been doing it for a while. Now, if there's regret seeping in, right? And that might explain why they're sloppy. Now, they're a little sloppy in the comic book, granted, but not this sloppy. They're sloppy. And it's hard to believe. Now, maybe it's because they've been doing it for so long and they've gotten away with it for so long that and I could see that they might need to explain that a little more, but yeah, they're losing it. And it's towards the end.
I want to hold on. I really want to talk about something that I think is a huge strength of this show.
Yep.
Their effects on a budget are fucking
Oh yeah.
fantastic. The magic, the staff, is everything around that staff. How it's almost scientific, but it's magic is so cool. The dinosaur fight with Molly was like probably the most comic booky thing we've seen. It looks cool. The glowing, Karolina's glowing. I've never seen TV effects that were like that polished and that cool. Like usually they would go too far, like they'd have like wisps coming off her and shit, but it was contained to within her form, and like the colors that they were able to work with inside those effects were
That
like
was really good.
really good.
That was
Like
really,
I'm
really, really good. The dinosaur being part puppet and part CG, I think is
yes.
genius. And I don't care. I mean, like, I honestly, I was totally okay with. You could tell kind of it was a puppet, but it was way better when she was petting the dinosaur than when Daenerys is petting the fake dragon. You could just tell she's
Yes.
not touching anything on Game of freaking Thrones.
Right. Well, they
Yeah,
knew that they had to have old lace in the show more than Danny's dragon, so they had to figure out some
yep,
cost-effective
yep.
way to do it. And the fact that they were able to make it look that good for a TV show that this thing is going to have to be in most episodes, I think they've done an amazing job with that. Like better than most we've seen. Like I can't think of another show like that's not an HBO budget show that like is this smart with how they're doing really big things.
Yeah, so far the effects are better than even a Netflix show. Like the Defenders, the effects were kind of ass, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is like I said before. That's why I think like not it's a higher quality show again than a CW show. Just
Then
as
The
far as
Gifted.
just
Then
there's more money behind this show.
yeah.
That's it.
Is there though? That's the question. If there is, then sure. They're making smart
They
choices,
saved
but
it
they
from
have the
not
budget.
marketing.
Yeah,
They
I
saved all
guess
that
they pulled it
marketing
out of
money
the
and
butt.
put it into effects.
That's probably true. You're probably not far off.
Oh my god. Well, they also got a lot of money from Lyft. Okay. There's a lot of Lyft product placement in there, baby. Woo. There was like Lyft mentioned 3 times and then there was a sticker. And I'm sensitive to that stuff. I just oh my god, once I notice it, I can't unsee it. Now so oh yeah, so after Robert and Stein get caught, like I was like, God damn, these guys are just effing up. Like Victor Stein is really screwing up. But that brings
And
us
Robert's
to
super unhelpful.
yeah, he's
He's
really
like, "Oh God, what's going on? I don't
like
know
he's
what to
always
do."
yeah, like trying to back out of it and stuff. And yeah,
It's like, dude, you're a fucking supervillain. Like, help your buddy out. Like, you're kidnapping a homeless guy to kill him, to sacrifice him to a dude. You're in on this. You've been in on this.
are they super
Like,
villains or are they just a cult or something? I
no,
don't
I
know if
mean,
they're super villains.
I think they're eventually going to get us to that point. I don't think the show works if they're not supervillains. I think that the show's getting us there. I think it's just taking longer to, like, right now they're just like like I think that as an audience who hasn't seen the books, I think that they're hoping that you're like trying to figure out with the kids how evil the parents are. Like you know that they're pretty evil, you know there's something weird going on, but like, hey, these hippies, they seem okay, and like, hey, this guy, he's having an affair, but like he doesn't want to kill this bum, and so like they're doing this stuff, and I think that that's where we're supposed to be as an audience. It's just that like as a reader of the books, like you know these guys are supervillains, so there's no like tension there because they're clearly doing evil things on the show too. So you know, I think I think they're supervillains. I think that there's if not super, they're at least villains. So it's somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Brian,
Where do you think they're gonna pull that punch?
yes, I actually do. I hope not. I would be okay with them even mentioning freaking Hydra. Like they found Hydra technology or something, like making it that way, or going the cosmic. Yeah, they have to be supervillains. It destroys the show if they're not. If they're just a cabal of really rich parents who want to. Well, I don't want to ruin that. Who want
I
to
think
do
the
something for
I
their
think that
children. Yeah.
the crotch scene, I think is leaning supervillain. I think all the
Yes.
Stein stuff that's happening is leaning supervillain. I think the Amy's death and her mom using the staff on her own daughter to shut her up is leaning supervillain. I think there's a lot of things that I think are definitely pointing toward supervillain, and they'd probably make us think they were more sympathetic if they weren't gonna throw that haymaker at us at a certain point. So
So,
you know
do you think that's a reveal they'll wait till the end of the series, or do you think we'll get that like halfway through?
I
If they do
think
it.
that we will get that. There's another reveal that needs to happen. So let's do this. Guys, we've talked about the Runaways as a whole. We've talked about this episode quite a bit. We may not have touched on everything, so next week, tune in. We'll touch on this stuff more. But I want to go into the spoiler section of this to talk about some of this stuff. So if you haven't read the books and you're really sensitive to spoilers, we're going to try to still keep it like a general conversation based on what we've seen in the show and not just go crazy. But we are going to talk about things that happened in the comics and how they're being adapted and how they relate to maybe what's going on. So tune out now. Come back next week. We'll talk more, but tune out now if you don't want spoilers.
And
Three,
Brian
two.
Smart has a comment too. Sorry, real quick.
Oh,
Karolina's
go
power reminds me of Dazzler's in the comics. She's definitely, yeah, she's Dazzler and Starfire.
yeah, I like that. I
Yeah,
like those equivalencies for sure.
for sure.
Um, so what I wanted to say here is that I think the reveal that one of the runaways is working with the parents that has to come at some point is going to be related to the parents being like supervillains because that reveal is kind of dependent, in my opinion, in my mind, you can't have one without the other.
Yep.
Like the reveal that one of the kids working with the parents won't mean anything if we think the parents are generally doing the right thing, right? Like doing bad things, but for the right reasons or whatever we're supposed to think right now. If they're like actively fighting their own kids or their kids' friends, like they should be in like they did in the comics, and
Yeah.
they're like they're like clearly like supervillains, we have to then it makes the idea that one of the kids is working with them a bigger deal, right? It lands harder. So I don't know. I feel like they have to go all the way with the parents so that the Molly Mole reveal is it matters like a lot more. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe I'm crazy.
No, because I think this falls into like one of the biggest left out scenes in the comic because Molly's parents are dead. Okay, when they go in and they threaten Molly, which I guess they could still do, right? But you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and Molly's like, and Nico gets into it. And it's like Mommy's like, get off my mom and stuff like that. It's like
Yes.
shit like that. That's and when she reveals her power,
Right. But the other
that
but
was like my favorite thing from the comic. So
me
pissed
too.
that's going to be taken
But
out.
they're gonna do stuff. Like maybe they won't do stuff like if they don't do that stuff. I am gonna be a little bit annoyed. Like if we don't get the fight over the fistigons, if
Fistigons.
we
I think
don't
we're
get
getting at. We're getting at.
I feel like we need to have a clash between some of the parents and some of the kids to draw the line that gets drawn in the comics that sends them away, right? Like that needs to happen. And if they pulled that punch, and I know I'm talking about pulled punches here because I am a little worried, um, if they pull that punch where no parent ever really takes on a kid, if they keep making it like the Molly and Alex's mom situation where she's hearing him out and she's just going to use the serum on her, on Molly, from episode 3. If we keep getting those kind of moments, it's good for tension in the show and it's interesting to see how the kids play off the parents and how the parents play off the kids. But you're missing the straight up like conflict, right? Like you're losing the like holy shit, like that parent is willing to throw a death blow at that kid for breaking in to try to steal this thing or whatever, right? Like all
Yeah,
these fights between the parents and kids in the comics, they matter. And
they
like you
mean
said, if they
something.
don't start doing that, if they don't start doing that, it's going to stop mattering, and that's a problem. So they have
No,
to. I
no, that's
feel
it.
like they have to get there.
Well, pulling the punches with Alex's dad, you know. Uh, now the way he interacts with Alex is fine. It's just everything else, because he's supposed to be this like badass,
So
and
let
he's
me
still a
pose this
badass. I mean, but just not in the way he is in the comic.
let me pose this question. They do seem to be adding more tension through creepy weird stuff than the comic
Yes,
has. Do you
yes,
think that like that's their like they've set this tone, and so now the like comic booky fighting doesn't quite fit in with the tone? So maybe that's a signal that they are going to drop some of this stuff and they're going to add more creepy weird stuff to keep the tension kind of going as long as possible. I don't blame them for that. I think having that tension there is good. But I also feel like you need the Runaways to run away at a certain point.
well, you do, and there's fighting. There's fighting in this comic book, and there's bad people, and I
Right now, it looks like
one
the hippies are going to run away with the Runaways. They're that like
yeah, that's like
the
what the
Yorks.
heck, that I don't know. I don't want to come out like it's still early in the show, and all this
Yeah.
stuff could still happen. So we could be talking about this for not, but
It's interesting, though. It's interesting the changes that they've made are signaling something, and we're just having a hard time predicting it. And that's smart, right? Like, all these things are double edged swords. Like, they're doing all this stuff that seems smart if certain other things happen. And maybe the other things that happen, if they don't happen, better things will happen. Or if they don't happen, worse things will happen. And so I love that the show has painted this picture for us to talk about because it's interesting, it's dynamic, uh, it's what a lot of these other shows don't have. Like there are viscerally entertaining shows that have less to talk about and less to like think about. Like I'm thinking about Runaways in between episodes a lot. Like, hey, am I going to get this scene in the next episode, or what's this weird creepy thing? Where is this whole Church of Jaborim going? Like, is it? Are they going to be?
that's one of the coolest additions.
Yeah,
That is,
there's all
I
this
love
cool
that
shit.
addition. I was telling my wife
I
earlier
don't know.
tonight.
I'm loving it.
No, I do too, and I think being more cerebral is a good move because, I mean, on the practicality level, having new actors, these kids are for the most part are new actors. Um, like having them do fights and stuff. I mean, that's hard, and then you got to get stunt people who are teenage size, and you got to think about stuff like that. Like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of fisticuffs. Okay, and also there's a man. Okay, I don't like to get controversial here, but I'll just keep this very broad. I promise, John. There's political correctness, and I think political correctness is infringing on writers feeling free to write. Okay, I'll just leave it with that. And I don't think
Well, that was my worry with
I
Molly. I mean,
think
I agreed with you. Some of the changes they did with Molly, I felt like were
it's
for a
not even
purpose.
not even for a political agenda. I like it would look bad for an adult to hit a kid.
Yeah.
To that aspect, it would like, oh, that would just be bad. It's like it's fiction. Okay, it's fiction, and if an adult like smacks down a kid, that's what
Yeah,
happens in the
and
book. It's
Here's
fake.
the thing, Gary. This is why I love that Josh Schwartz is tackling this because do you remember after Gossip Girl season 1, all the moms were up in arms about like certain scenes from the thing, and he took the quotes from the moms groups and he put them up on billboards with like really sexy scenes as their marketing campaign to say "fuck you" to all the people who were trying to say that his show should be taken off the air. And I feel like that instinct in him will allow for those things to happen in this show.
I
I don't
hope
think
so
he
because I think
cares.
the landscape of Hollywood is completely changed, and I've already seen them. Like that's why the
It's true.
Punisher was such a goddamn surprise to me. Like the way they took the gloves off of that show. I was old school how
Yeah,
they did that.
I still
But
feel
I'm
like it.
starting to see it creep into movies and TV, and it's also like we're at the top here. So we're at the corporate mass appeal, full on sellout
Yeah.
level, which is fine. And not a lot of chances are going to be taken. Although this is, I feel, where you should take the chance, like on Hulu with a show
Yeah.
like this. So
I'm
don't
also thinking
pull.
maybe that's why he's doing this on Hulu. Like Josh Schwartz has that
Yeah, no,
tendency in,
definitely.
and the scene with Chase and his dad, where you literally see Chase's dad punch him in the comic
Yeah,
early on. I feel like like I might be wrong, but I feel like he's holding that back. I think that that's gonna happen, and that this scene we saw tonight is gonna make it hurt even more
yeah, it's
when
going
you
to
see
set it
that
up. Yeah,
come.
I
You
think.
know?
Well, there's some scenes, and it shows like him. It shows Stein, or yeah, holding up the glove.
Yeah, the
So that
glove.
could be. It could. Yeah, you could be right, and that would be good because that's the whole impact of the show. That's we hem and haw about this because if they don't make them supervillains and they don't show them smacking around kids, as bad as that sounds, that's what this story is. This
This
is
is the
this is
story.
a tragedy. Okay, this is your parents are bad and some of them want to kill the other kids, and you're like, wait a minute. And you have to fight against your parents. Like, how messed up is
Yeah.
that? Now, some relationships are bad and kids would be happy to do that. But,
I
you
want to
know,
do something fun with you, Gary, because like this is weird. I want to, and this may take a little while, so bear with me. I want to do a power ranking of like how interesting each of the kid characters are to you in the show versus how they were in the books. So like I can go first, and basically, my power ranking would be like I really like Nico at the top. I really liked Alex, and then probably like Gert, Molly, um, Chase, Karolina. That's probably like my interest level. Like if I saw a Nico storyline, I was very happy to see the storyline happen. If they were wasting time with like Karolina or Chase, I didn't really care that much. And this is like very generalized, right? In the show, I feel like my power ranking of like, oh, I want to see that scene right now is probably Gert, Chase, Alex, Karolina. Maybe Karolina's above Alex because I love all the church stuff. So like Gert, Chase, Karolina, Alex, Nico, Molly is probably where I'm at. Like I could use no Molly because it's just not the same character. I don't love what they've done with her. Nico's so sad and all that stuff, and I want to see like strong Nico, like with magic and stuff. But like I feel like for me, Carolina has jumped from like the worst character in the series, like my least favorite character in the whole series, to like I really want to know what the fuck has been going on in her life in this church, and she's a crazy alien, and like all this cool stuff is happening. And like Chase is so much more interesting with how they're painting the relationship with his dad. Like, I don't know, I'm digging some of the characters that I didn't really care as much about in the books. So what's your power ranking look like? What characters did you gravitate toward in the books, and is it different from the show?
no, that's pretty similar to yours. It's
Yeah,
pretty. I like Nico. I would be number one. I liked Molly, just because the juxtaposition of a little girl that's as strong as the Hulk, essentially,
yep,
which is just hilarious, and she's funny in the book.
yes,
Um, and then Alex, because Alex
smart
is the
tactician.
Robin of the Teen
Yeah,
Titans.
good. I like.
Yeah. Then Chase and Carolina. Well, no, Gert. I know Gert annoying. She was annoying, but she was supposed to be annoying, so she was an interesting character. And I like the fact that like Gert wasn't what she put off. She's totally
Yeah.
she's just a regular girl,
Yeah.
and not saying
She's
social
Daria from the
skills aren't
old
regular girls, but they're not.
uh-huh.
And and yeah, and Karolina and Chase were just like meh. I mean, I like Chase was kind of comic relief, and Karolina was
Was
again
there.
Starfire was like yee, yeah, she's the one of the most interesting characters. I still like Alex. I'm still liking Alex. I
I'm
think
still
that
liking Alex too.
he's been really true to
He
his
didn't have a lot this episode. He was
no.
relegated to like Nico's support this episode, which I don't know, maybe mistake from episode to episode, like watching these back, maybe, as Nico being such a key part of the team, like he's usually the guy making the decisions, to have him in a non-decision making capacity at a very crucial time in their discovery of what's going on with their parents seems a little bit off to me. But at the same time, it's this was really about Karolina coming to grips with what's going on, and Nico coming to grips with the death of her sister in a lot of ways. So, I guess it makes sense. But it was weird to see him in such a support role.
Yeah, but he was being, for one, he loves Nico, and or did he love Amy? We're still not sure, but he's being very supportive, and
Both.
he's being the angel, the soulful saint, like his dad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Set up. So oh, yeah, I like to see, I'm liking that the group is coming together and it's doing it in the way the books did. It was nice seeing Gert and Carolina together, like two people who would like, I mean, we've all had that friend in high school. And when you get older, you just completely turn into two different people, although you were completely tight when you were young. It's nice to see them get back together. I like the whole mystery. They're doing their little Scooby Gang thing, and they got the R2D2 USB drive. Nice little Star Wars product placement
I
there.
love the nope on her jacket. Just
Yes.
nope. I loved it.
No,
So Gary, okay, I don't
everything
know if you talked
played out
about.
cool. It developed naturally. It wasn't extraordinary. It was good though. I was very entertained.
Have you talked about your childhood much on these podcasts? Because
A little
there's
bit, yeah.
something going on with. Okay, so there's something going on with Molly. Is that you might find relatable, but did you? Is the question I have.
Oh, with
Like
one.
she's googling about her birth parents and stuff,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
things she wants to know about and everything.
So I was adopted, and I can only speak for myself. I've had friends who are adopted too, and the ones who I spoke we always wondered. Like, as my parents told me at a very very young age. I can't even remember when my parents told me. I was extremely young when they told me. So to their credit, they told me when I was very young. But it doesn't not fuck you up. I mean, it it hurts people in different ways, but it still hurts. It still stings a little bit. You feel rejection, and you always wonder, like, what does my mom look like? What does my dad look like? I thought about that every day, but in very little ways. I mean, you get used to it. My parents, the ones who raised me, are my parents, and I've been lucky enough I've met my birth mother, and had a little sister that I didn't know about, which was awesome. And we've had a great relationship for like a decade now. But when I was young, yeah, I did stuff like that. Now, we didn't have Google, obviously, when I was a kid, but my mom had a printout for me that the social worker gave to her with just basic information, just like first names, where they came from, how old they were. Like, my mom was my mom was 16 when she had me, just turned 16 when she had me. This was in 1969. And yeah, I was born in a Salvation Army,
Oh, I didn't know
a
that.
home for wayward mothers. Yeah, that's where I was born, down in San Diego. It was called Booth Memorial, and it wasn't even a hospital. It was just like where teenagers had to go to have babies back in those days. Yeah, it's hardcore. So yeah,
So how do you
I
feel like the
totally
show
thought
is,
that's
is
funny
dealing
that you
with it?
bring that up. Sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, I even wrote it down my notes. It's like, oh my god, I totally felt that. Like that is messed up, and level it on top that her parents were murdered. They died. I wouldn't even know what that's like. But yeah, I did stuff like that. You always wonder. I think that was real. That scene was real.
That's good, good, because that's one of those things. Like I was just watching, I thought about you because I was like, they've made Molly very unrelatable for me, right? Like I'm having a hard time with these changes they've made with Molly. They took a character that I really understood, like she was probably the most loved of all of the kids going into them running away. Like she didn't understand why they had to run away. And she's this little girl, and her parents seem very loving up until the point where they don't. And so it felt very much like this kid was forced out of what should have been a very good situation, right? But this story, this Molly we're getting, seems to be like the most fucked up by her parents, right? It's like the opposite. Like she's from, like her parents were murdered. She's now adopted. Like she doesn't know a lot of these stories that she wants to know about her parents because she was so young when they were killed. And so like it's a very different thing, and it's harder to relate to for me, right? Like so I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, they're making her a different ethnicity, that she's older, she doesn't know her family anymore. Like these are a lot of changes for one character from to be like it's almost like a completely different character. So I was kind of
It
watching it
is.
thinking like, so they're making her adopted now. Is this a relatable thing? Like, are they treating it well at least? Like,
Yeah,
that was my
totally.
thought. Like, I don't know enough to know if they're treating this well. They made this change. They better do a good job in how they deal with her dealing with it. So I'm happy. I'm happy to know that they're not, that they're doing what should, like, that this is real, that what she's doing is like
Oh,
in
dude,
in lockstep with the situation.
superheroes are made for adopted kids. They are. I mean, like, think about it. Like, how many orphan superheroes are there? And they're so relatable. Like that. Peter Parker lost his parents. Batman lost his parents.
Hmm.
Superman lost his freaking planet. So it was very easy to relate and pretend to be a superhero when you're a kid. Um, like back
That's
when
awesome.
you had electronic devices a little bit, but when I was a little kid, like Pong was maybe around,
Yeah,
ColecoVision a little later.
yeah. No,
So like we went out and you know played
played
outside,
super.
and like we used to play superheroes, get trash can lids, and be Captain America and stuff like that. It'd be fun.
That's awesome.
Get on a skateboard, pretend you're a Silver Surfer. It was yeah, it was right. So that was relatable. That was good. I that
How do
that
you
yeah.
feel about Molly now, a few episodes in? She's so
Uh,
different. It's like such
I
a different thing.
it's hard to like a kid in puberty, even if you have one, which I do. No, I'm just kidding. They're just at an awkward stage, and it's so. I'll get over the disappointment because the actress is fine. She's doing a good job. Um, but and I know that the trouble they have with that, like to have a seven. How old is Molly in the comics? 8, 9,
Yeah, eight, nine. Yes,
8 or 9.
something like that.
To have that on set is such a problem. You and I both know that. Like there's
Yeah,
it costs tons of money, and you can only work certain hours. And Josh Schwartz wants to kind of take his gloves off for the show. You can't do certain things around kids,
yeah.
and yeah,
The
there's
problem
laws.
is that they were
Hollywood
forced to
doesn't mind them very
change.
much.
They were forced to change a big aspect of the character already, and then they chose, maybe because of this budget reason, to change another aspect of the character. And the character is as an 8-year-old mutant with parents, and now she's a 14-year-old non-mutant without parents, and it's just a
Yeah.
lot. It's just a lot.
What do you think the source of her powers are going to be?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Genetic experiments. I don't know.
Do
Are
you
they
think?
ever going to tell us?
Yeah,
Gamma
um now
look
I
like?
read
Is she
somewhere
gamma?
today this does take place in the MCU. They're just not going to like really talk about it, kind of like the Punisher,
Yeah.
but it definitely takes place in the MCU. So I think they're just saying that to keep fans happy. But
Hmm.
it'd be nice to like just mention AIM or something throwaway uh that you could possibly throw in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to know where the like that, because that's another thing that they use the entire spectrum in the comic book to like get every Marvel fan involved. Like they had the technical, we talked about slide podcast. They had the magic hero, they have the mutant, they have the technical hero.
Yeah. It was scientist, time traveler, magic, mutant, crime boss, and alien.
Yeah, I mean
Were the
that's the
others?
gambit right there.
Yeah.
So You could still do that. Maybe they'll probably. I wonder if they make her an Inhuman. That'd be
Oh, that's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, that'd
That
be
would
very
suck.
interesting. That
I
would
don't love
suck
that.
hard. That's a bad idea. I'm sorry
I'm
about
against that, if you couldn't tell.
it.
So yeah, we'll see. So is there anything else from this episode? We've been going pretty long tonight, but is there anything like I felt this was a good one after the first three, and this being the first one that we waited for, right? Like they dropped three at once and then waited a week and we get this one. I felt like they were really smart to drop those first three because it felt like a mini series opener for this series and it put us on this track. And this was the first like real TV-ish episode that we got. And so far, my impression of this show is that it's that they are making everything count and they've created a new tone for these superhero shows. It's creepier, it's weirder, it's still quippy and quirky and dreamy. They've done a really good job of making the powers seem interesting and spectacular. Like when you see Karolina start glowing, it's like so cool. Like it evokes a sense of wonderment that they haven't really gotten right yet a lot of other places. And when you get that fight between old Lace and Molly, it's we've seen that, but it felt different somehow. And so like I feel like the way that they've struck this tone on this show is um it's different and interesting and I love it. Like I'm just so happy that they've done that. And I feel like that this episode we saw tonight was what the show is going to be, which is why I asked you that earlier. Like this is going to be a typical episode of this show. And like that's really exciting to me because there's a lot to talk about. It's fun. I get the sense of like reading a comic book when I was a kid from it, and I also get like the weird TV stuff that I like, So I don't. I just feel like this episode particularly, I feel like is our baseline average, and and that's exciting to me because I thought it was pretty well done.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna go long, sorry. I want to mention a couple things.
Yeah,
Brian Smart did leave a comment. I want to bring it up. Uh, okay. I think you will get a comic Nico once she gets full control of the staff, and I just put agreed. And yeah,
yes.
I totally agree. I heard they were they made a change to the staff of one. I'm not
It looks like it's
sure.
scientific.
Yeah, like I don't think it's gonna just do everything
Oh
once.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So the staff in the books, we should just yeah. So for this is the spoiler section, so you've probably seen it. But the staff of one can only do everything once. So because it snowed, because she said snow or had the snowflakes and everything started snowing in the last episode, theoretically she couldn't use the staff to make it snow again. Or she'd have to figure out another way to evoke that. So maybe she would do like ice storm instead of snowstorm or something like that, right? So she has to get creative because she can only like teleport once or go invisible once or whatever. So yeah, it seems as if I mean we don't know much yet, but theoretically it can do things more than once because she's put up a barrier multiple times with it.
Yeah. Yeah, she has. She has. And I totally ripped off that for Cosmic Crater Girl, the character
Yeah,
me and my wife and Derek created. Her gun, the one shot wonder, fires anything once.
that's
I
awesome.
totally stole it, but yeah, whatever. I love it.
Yeah, it's a
And I
great.
forgot that like the staff of one did that. I'm like, I'm gonna keep it anyway. Fuck it. Who cares?
That's the thing that's interesting is that that's an interesting thing for it to happen in a comic book because like you see the words and then you see the effects in the comic and you can kind of track it in comic book form really easily. But in a TV show, there's just no reason for it. Like it doesn't add anything to the
Nah,
show.
no,
So
it's such a
you
quirky
change.
comic book thing. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Hey, did you catch that the farm that they're going to in the Yucatan belonged to the Hernandezes?
Yeah, it's Molly's parents.
It's Molly's parents. So
So
they were
yeah,
working
they left it.
together. Um,
Well, no, not necessarily. I
Not
mean,
necessarily. Okay, I
theoretically,
kind of thought they were, but maybe not.
so it seems that they left it for Molly. So they
Oh,
left it to the
okay,
Yorks
gotcha.
as like Molly's
That
inheritance.
makes sense.
And then they also said that they were transferring a bunch of money there. Like Tina, when she got her thing, the Yorks had been transferring a bunch of money to that location in the Yucatan. And I'm thinking theoretically some of that is also Molly's money. Like that's just something I read into maybe, but yeah, it seems like they're taking this inheritance and using it to
So
hide things.
if they do a Disney happy ending and completely change the comic, that's where the kids could end up in the Yucatan on the farm with Old Lace. I really liked the Old Lace Molly fight. I thought that I didn't think we'd get any. I didn't think we'd get any Old Lace. So like any, and I know we mentioned this before, but anything is good because I didn't. I was surprised as you that they were going to put. I thought they were going to change that. They were going to make just
Yep.
Gert like psychic or something like that. So I think it's very cool, and
So
I
I
think
want
that's
to. Can
Josh
I say something
Schwartz.
about that too? When the fight happened, I thought it was super cool, and then I love the moment where they're about to charge at each other, and Gert opens the door and says, "Stop!" And they both stop because Molly is her sister, and she
Yep.
stop. And the dinosaur has to listen to her because it's genetics, and she was, and so they both stopped at exactly the same point, like you would see in a comic book. However, I thought about it right after, and Gert opened the door while she was saying stop. She doesn't know what's happening inside. So
Yeah.
like how often, Gary, do you walk home and like you hear something happening, you just open the door and say stop at the same time? Not often.
Well, not often, except when you
Sometimes.
have kids
Yeah,
and
I
you
guess
just
that's
hear
true.
noise.
Wait a minute. Okay, guys, stop it.
Stop
Anyway, I just
whatever
thought it
it
was
is. Stop what you're doing.
yeah. But it was such a
That's
cool moment and a cool visual. But
no,
yeah,
loved it. Loved it. So no, it was a good show. It was it didn't fall off in quality. So that I was happy about that. Yeah, my biggest concern was I didn't see anybody else talking about it. And I was like, ooh, man. And we'll go into that on Friday Night Live. I really want to talk about Friday Night Live. I want to can I pump it really quick?
yeah, well,
Is
I can't wait to join you this week. I finally have a Friday that I can join you guys on this one, so I'm excited.
So that is not its official name. Okay, that is a working title. But we do Dennis and I and John do a podcast, and that's where the recap kind of was born out of. We do a main podcast, but it's not something that's we focused on the YouTube channel. So now that we got our live streaming back and we got our schedules in order, we decided we want to do the podcast like on the same night at the same time, like normal podcasters do, because we've been doing this thing for 4 years and it's been like whenever we have time. So now it's going to be Friday nights, 8 o'clock Pacific time. We did one last week. It was really fun. Like Dennis and I talked for like 2 hours. We had people chiming in. Brian, I think Brian was there, and but we love Brian. And it was great. I had such a good time, and I don't care if it's just me, Brian, you, and Dennis, and a few other people. Like I will do that thing forever. So we're gonna do it Friday night, 8 o'clock, and yeah, I'd love to go into like, do you think all these side Disney shows are just gonna end up getting? Remember when Disney bought Marvel and there was two great cartoons? There was the Spectacular Spider-Man and there was the Mighty Avengers, and they just ended them because they weren't Marvel properties and they started their own, which were not as good. I'm afraid the same thing's going to happen with the TV shows. I think they're going to like either bring it over to the digital network or just cut it short. I don't
They
know.
also
I
had
mean,
Wolverine and the X-Men, right? Anyway, it might be that
and
might have
well,
come
yeah,
up.
John, you would know. I mean, I know you can't talk and definitely don't talk about what you can't talk about, but I mean you would probably know more than me, but that's my fear.
Here's
I
what I
hope that's
can
not the
say.
case.
Here's what I can say. I think that we don't need to be worried about things getting canceled too much. There's always, the possibility. What we will probably see is that these things will make their way over to the new Disney streaming service and get
That's
kind of.
cool.
So we may not see like and if that happens, you may have weird things happen like let's say Josh Schwartz's deal is for the Hulu thing and he wants to work on another project, you lose Josh Schwartz as a showrunner, you lose
Ooh.
one of the so I feel like you could see weird things like that start happening, which I would not be happy with. But I think these shows they've committed to will most likely make a transition after a couple years. My guess is that this one is going to stay on Hulu even if that happens because it's not a big enough show for them and it probably might go away before that happens anyway because the Netflix stuff is all moving over in like what 2020, early
Yeah,
2020.
is the Punisher going to move over?
Yeah, I think it's all going to go over to the new Disney streaming.
That's
All of it.
interesting.
Yeah.
And ooh, yeah, that's something we could definitely talk about in that podcast because there's a lot of juicy stuff there.
Yeah, I
A lot of
can't.
juicy
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm excited to join you guys this Friday. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait, dude.
How's Mr. Robot going?
Amazing. It
Yeah.
is its best season. It's slowly becoming my favorite show. If anybody out there is not watching that, please do yourself a favor and just watch the show. Yeah, it's dark. Yeah, the subject matter gets a little dark, but it has enough levity in it, and it's really if you're a fan of The Matrix or Fight Club, it's like the peanut butter cup of those two movies. They ran into each other and turned into a TV show that's as good, if not a little better, as far as dialogue and acting is concerned. And yeah, the showrunner, Sam Smell, Esmail, is I always want to say Sam's email. That's what it looks like. He's amazing. He directs every episode, writes every episode.
Wow.
Man is, and this is like the first big thing he's done. I can't say enough good about the show. It is amazing.
So then check out, you guys do your recaps live after the show on the West Coast, right?
Yes, we do. We do 9. We'll be on this Wednesday at 9:30. We also have another show coming up. Happy, my buddy Derek Robertson's first property. Actually, Nightman did make. There was a TV show for Nightman back in the day, and Derek Robertson was part of that. But this is like his first like big deal, and we're hopefully going to get him on this channel for 10 15 minutes. Yeah, cross your fingers. I talked to him today, and it looks good. So yeah, we're going to be coming Happy the same night. I don't know when though.
Figure it out.
We'll
so here's the other thing. We've got some big announcements coming about shows we're covering, but we're also going to be launching a new Twitch channel in the new year, which is basically going to be a game show network of sorts. We're launching with a show where we're going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons with other podcasters from other networks. So stay tuned for more details on that. That one's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, if you're into watching fun role-playing games and game shows and stuff like that, we're going to have content on Twitch starting in February of next year.
Oh, can I mention? Yay. Okay, so I didn't put it up. I was supposed to. I apologize. The Patreon packages will be as follows. They will be up in the next 48 hours, but they will be $1. If you get $1, you get a podcast once a month that you could possibly be on. What we'll do is we'll do a hangout, and depending on how many people join and who's interested, we'll work out the details.
Yeah.
If you give out $5, there's you get 3 Comic Outpost variants that were exclusive to my store, 2 Spider-Man books and an Avenger book, and you also will get like a T-shirt thrown into that. $10 will be it's kind of like a loot crate. You're going to get a loot crate. So what you're going to get is 4 to 5 comics and 3 to 4 action figures and a T-shirt. Now the T-shirt will come later because we got to make them and design them and stuff. But in the beginning, it'll just be like a loot crate. But it's not going to be new toys. That's going to be the slant. It's going to be the stuff you see hanging up behind me. It's going to be some of that. It's going to be cool vintage stuff. So, I mean, I'm not going to send out a $400 toy to you, but you're going to get some cool stuff. It'll definitely be stuff to decorate your computer, your office, or give to a kid or resell and make some money. I don't care. Yeah. So that'll all.
And there'll be a limit on how, like, it'll be like pledge $10 and we'll send out the crate after 3 active months.
Yes.
So that
yes. Exactly. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate it.
So yeah, exciting, man. We got a lot of stuff going on. The holidays are here, so it's crazy. Shows are going and coming, and we're going and coming. But you're just like the weird decrepit man. We're glowing and coming all over the place.
Yes. Warm me.
Yes. Cold.
All right. Well, do you have anything to say other than me taking this out?
Take us out, man.
Are we good?
We're good.
All right. I will take us out. All of our links will be in the description below once this rolls over to be a video, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Bye, everybody. Have a good one. See you next week.
Good night.
Or hopefully.
Yeah.